Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the reboot. And it is indeed a reboot of something, a project that Charles Faulkner gave me the title of. It's Diary of a Mad Snowman. And I am he that they call the snowman. This is a reboot because I got so far behind in production that I couldn't keep up. So I decided I'm going to put a little more structure to it. And this will now become a weekly series instead of a nightly series due to my schedule, especially now with March Madness going on. We're going to go behind the curtain. And a couple of my buddies, including Danny Fuller, is in the house. This is an audio diary. And this part is the foundation. This is the prologue. This is the foundation. I am Brian Snow. I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. I currently live in southern Indiana, south of Indianapolis. I am a sports nerd. I am happily married with children and grandchildren. I lost a daughter at a very early age. I have been homeless several times. I have been in a couple of abusive relationships instead of just the one I talk about the most. I am a sportscaster. I am a sports talk host. And I am currently disabled. So the biggest reason I am doing this is to help my family, is to gain some support to help my family, because being disabled really sucks. And I plan to talk about that at a later time during this. But the subject I have for you, well, that doesn't complete the foundation yet. Continue to go behind the curtain. As mentioned, I am a proud husband, father, and grandfather. I have been married to my beautiful wife for about 5 years. In fact, we will celebrate our 5th anniversary in June. I am a cancer survivor, pancreatic cancer, and I am now an amputee survivor because I had my right big toe amputated very recently. I have also survived blood clots. I am a type 2 diabetic, and I am just trying to make it like every other man here, trying to find a way to make it where people can understand why I do this. Not only is my family my biggest motivation, but I have 2 other factors. One, I was convinced, no, let me change that. I was encouraged to do this. I was encouraged to do this by Charles Faulkner and many, many others. And they have said to me several times over, if you ever need help putting it together or coming up with ideas, we'll help you, but only you can speak it. So instead of writing the book that I had in mind, I decided to speak it because it's something I know how to do very well. If you all like it and want to help old Snowman get everything together with his family, a donation via Cash App or PayPal or both will be very necessary. And I want to say thank you to my buddy Michael Ray, who dropped me a Cash App yesterday for an advertising deal. And I want to take this to the point where this podcast and many others get big time advertising deals, and I'm able to help people. Now, to the biggest part of the foundation, which are the 2 reasons I'm doing this. I already explained one. I am disabled and I am looking for all kinds of help from my family because my wife and daughter cannot do it alone. I have to find a way to not only keep us afloat, but get us to the next level. And the second reason I want, being in the cancer community, being a survivor of cancer, I want to take a big part of this and make a donation. That's why I'm doing as much streaming as I possibly can, getting as much rest as I possibly can, and doing everything I can here in the house to help my wife so she can rest and I can take the energy that I have to help out around here. Now then, it's time for the entree of this first chapter. And it involves a very, very good question. Can a man ever have a bad day? More to the point, can a black man ever have a bad day? I can answer that question right now, and the answer is no. Men are never allowed to have a bad day. You know why? Because we have to keep society afloat. We have to keep the narratives in society alive that we don't have breaking points, that we don't have points where we just want to just absolutely go completely off, where we don't have points where we just tip over that mountain and don't come back. And I know I can identify with a lot of men, especially black men, that have been to the valleys where I have been to. In fact, two of the most important ones, my grandfather, I lost to a stroke, and my father, whom I lost to prostate cancer. Now that I've answered the first question, let's dive deep. Why are we not allowed to have a bad day? Well, I answered part of it. Somehow we're supposed to keep a narrative and a stigma and a backbone going that all we are doers and not beers, and we can't do both, which is a lie, which is a total lie. Because if we are ever caught, and I stress that and capitalize the word caught, showing our emotion, then the finger will be pointed at us. The finger will be pointed at black men, especially, of which I am. And we have to take the punishment. And yes, there's a lot of punishment that comes with us finally reaching the point where we can't come back from and just going, as a friend of mine stated best, teetotally the hell off. That's why one of the main reasons we can never have a bad day. Because in our society, in our culture, if a black man is caught ever going off, every negative narrative will be pointed and directed toward him. He can't control his emotions. He doesn't have a father in the home, which is a lie. And my dad was the most emotional person in the house, but knew how to keep it in order. That all you are is angry, that you have anger issues, that you have issues, period. And maybe he does have issues, but have you ever thought of the fact that because we're not allowed to show our emotions, because we're never allowed to seek and find what those issues are or point to where those issues began, that we are held to an unreachable standard. Why do I say it's an unreachable standard? Because as the big dog said a moment ago, men are supposed to be robotic in this world. And that has been true as long as I've been alive, and I will be 52 years old in July. We are just supposed to be robotic, do what we're told with no emotion attached to it. That's the biggest lie in the world. You know how I really found that out? That we are just supposed to, well, there are two directions I can go with this, and I'll go down both paths. To repeat my friend Shane Lake's comment, men are supposed to be robotic in this world. Yeah, right. That is the truth. We cannot and should not be robotic. It's just that so many situations in society have pushed and pushed and pushed us to the point where we are standing on the edge of that cliff, about to take that final step and not come back because there is no trampoline at the bottom of that fall, and it is a long fall into the valley. You know why I had such a long fall into the valley? Because of every emotional outburst that you have swallowed down, held back, kept at bay, kept at arm's length, where you don't have an opportunity to let out what you are feeling. And to couple that, where you don't have the proper people. And I'm talking about people who support you and love you no matter what, to allow you to let that out. You know why men have so much shit on their mind? Because in many, many cases, mine included, they're not allowed to let it out. We're told that we're just overreacting. But let me pose a question. How do you know if we're overreacting? Were you walking in our shoes? Were you there when we reached the final straw? Were you there when you saw a man get hit by a woman that supposedly loves him? Were you there when you saw a man get yelled at, cussed out, finger pointed at, laughed at by people who supposedly love you? And in my case, were you there when a parent flat out tells you to your face that you are nothing but a wannabe when it comes to being a sportscaster? Day after Christmas 2013. Was staying with my mom at the time. And that was the only week that calendar year that I had off. And I thought my mother was asleep. And phone rings. I didn't want to answer it, but it was my mother's friend and subsequently my friend. He comes over with his girlfriend, and he tells his girlfriend very proudly that I'm a sportscaster. And at that time, I was celebrating my 18th year. And my mother's retort was, and I quote, "Oh, please, he ain't nothing but a wannabe." I'll repeat that. My mother's retort to me was, quote, "Oh, please, he ain't nothing but a wannabe." Very, very few people until now know that story and why I went silent for a full 5 days. One of the people who knows that story is in this chat right now. And he was one of the first people I reached out to. I didn't sleep that night. In fact, as I said, after I talked to him, I went silent for a full 5 days. because it is not right in one breath to encourage your son to pursue something he has known and loved for most of his life and then to tear it down later on because he wasn't bringing money to you when you told him in another breath to save money for him to get an apartment. Very few times after that have I yelled and cussed so much. As I mentioned, I didn't sleep that night. So, what is a man supposed to do when he's told something like that? What is a man supposed to do when he is told you are nothing but a wannabe because it's not benefiting the person you're living with? Especially in the eyes of a parent, especially in the eyes of a parent who supposedly loves you. And I am no longer afraid to say the word supposedly, even though my mother's no longer here right now, and God rest her soul. God rest her soul. I miss her dearly, but we had some falling outs. We had some fights. And I will say the one happy thing I do take with me is the fact that she was able through a phone call to meet my wife and share a laugh. But to a question I asked earlier, were you there when a man gets accused of cheating and he never did? When a man gets beaten because he was cheating on a woman and he never did? Were you there when he hopped in his car and drove from LaPorte, Indiana to Gary, Indiana at 70 miles an hour and risked a speeding ticket to get the hell out of Dodge? Were you there when he drove the next day from Gary to Chicago at 70 miles an hour and risked an even bigger speeding ticket? I drove back to the port and I made sure that the door was open to the apartment that I signed for, and I'll tell that story in a minute. Brought plenty of blankets, stretched out, turned on the baseball game, and I crashed. And for 2 solid months, from the start of and this was 2015, from the start of the league championship series to the end of the World Series, which occurred November 2nd, 2015. I went there, I went to sleep, I got up, and I got the hell out of Dodge because I was not going to deal with her attitude. And that's another thing. Can a man ever have a bad day? No, especially when he takes a stand against something he knows it's not right. And the biggest thing that is not right against a man is abuse. People think men are just abusers. That's wrong. I am he who speaks of his experience, speaks from experience about being in a very abusive relationship. And that was a series of bad days from April 2015 to November of 2015. And technically, it stretched on until March of 2016. That I never in life want to repeat with someone that toxic. I feel for men, I feel for black men in particular that go through an abusive relationship and they are accused of being the abuser because it's not right. I've been there. I have been there with Miss Jody Dials, and I am revealing her name. And I don't care if she finds this and threatens me with a lawsuit. I have the receipts to prove my case. To the point where I went to the LaPorte Police Department and they laughed in my face. Oh, there's no way you're going through that. She's smaller than you. There's no way you can go through that. Oh, no. They think because I, standing 6'5" and at the time well over 300 pounds, thought I can just use my brute strength. But when you're emotionally manipulated, when you're emotionally abused, you know how many bad days are strung together? And it wasn't just her that was emotionally abusing me at the time. The gentleman I was living with, who I called a roommate, was emotionally abusing me at the time. And you know the lure that he was abusing me with, that they came together over? Money. Because I was trying to save enough that I can to get the hell out of Dodge and wouldn't surrender a penny to them. Because for once in my life, I wanted something for me. And that is another reason why a man is never allowed to have a bad day, because he wants something good for himself and is not allowed to pursue it. And that ain't fair. You know what else this bitch did? And I'm not afraid to use the word, and I'm going to use it here. When I was preparing for baseball season 2016, there was a local bank in LaPorte, Indiana that I reached out to, where I wanted to have them as an advertiser for my audio baseball broadcasts. I found the person in charge, found out who the person was in charge, reached out to them, presented an offer, and about an hour later, I got an email that said, "We already signed a check over to you." And I went, "What?" And when I found out who did this, I'm glad I was in my apartment at the time, but I went completely off the deep end. I couldn't chase the bitch down. How would that look? And all this went through my mind. All of this went through my mind. You want a set of bad days? I'm stringing them together for you. I'm bouncing around, but I'm stringing them together and I'm answering the question. The subject du jour tonight: can a man ever have a bad day? Going back to November 2015, when I found out I lost my baby girl, Donna, at age 2. I hid in 3 different hotels in LaPorte County to make sure that Jody Dials did not find me. Was doing good until I went into a McDonald's in LaPorte. And gentlemen, have you ever been sitting somewhere and you think you found your solace and you're by yourself, even though you're amongst the crowd, you're by yourself and you're thinking, okay, I have a little bit of peace. And then a few seconds later, it all of a sudden gets destroyed. That is what happened that day. When she walked up to me with a smile on her face, mind you, while I was crying after finding out what I found out, that I lost my 2-year-old daughter. You just try to hold on and hold on until it all goes away. And when it doesn't go away, when it keeps multiplying and it keeps compounding, you lose so many more of your brain cells. You lose so much more of your soul. You lose so much more of your heart. And she said something to me, and I talked about this earlier tonight about having something said to you that just makes you completely go off the deep end. Here's another situation. I gave you one. Here's a second one. This same woman who stole $1,000 from me, from an advertiser, who basically stole $2,000 from me. And I'm glad she didn't find out about the big advertising deal I had turned over just before I met her. I'm so glad about that, but I ran in fear. And I held her at bay as long as I could, and thank God I did. But when I told her what happened in losing my daughter, and I showed her a picture of Donna, her retort to me was, and I quote, "I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about business." I quietly packed up my gear, went out, made sure she didn't follow me, hit the gas and ran, because I knew had I stayed any longer in her presence, I would be in handcuffs for something that was not my fault. Why? Because there were so many things that were piled on me at the time. And this is a form of therapy for me, so stay with me, folks. There have been so many things over the years said to me, and all I did until very recently was hold them in. I was homeless quite a few times between LaPorte, Indiana, and Michigan City, and later on Dayton, Ohio. And that was an adventure and a half. By June of 2018, I had been through so much, including a trip to the mental hospital in Michigan City in 2017, because I was lamenting. I didn't realize how much depression I was holding in. And I was lamenting about my daughter. And someone had said to me, "I know you have hit rock bottom." And I completely snapped. I snapped. I couldn't hold it anymore. I couldn't take it anymore. Well, safe to say that person and I, who said, "I know you've hit rock bottom," now have an understanding, because that person didn't know what I was going through at the time. Now that that person understands, we have since reconnected. But it was dicey for about 3 years. It was dicey for about 3 years. Then came my adventure in Dayton, Ohio, and that's a chapter in and of itself. 2017 to 2018. And by the time the Golden State Warriors were being crowned champions, I got the hell out of Dodge. In fact, I called a very dear friend while I was homeless at the time, trying to work, staying in a shelter, working a full-time job. And I barely slept. And when I say I barely slept, I mean just that. I barely slept. To the point where I was sitting in a Panera Bread, and on impulse, I called a friend of mine in Chicago. And I burst into tears. And when he heard me burst into tears, God bless him, he said, "What can I do?" I said, "There's one thing you can do." And he says, "What's that?" "Get me out of here. Please, get me out of here." So he got me a bus ticket. He reserved a bus ticket for me, sent me a little cash for the bus ride, and I came home to Chicago. Along the way, I spoke to another friend of mine, and he was in charge of media for and I think he still is in charge of media for the Illinois High School Association. And I asked him, how much would media rights be for me to come broadcast in baseball, state championships? I have only one outfit. I haven't shaved. I've been through a lot. And he said, come on down. I'll let you work it off. Come on down. I said, what? He said, I'm serious. You come down here and we got you. I'll let you work it off. I can honestly say that was the first thing in 2018 that began the odyssey of me finding myself again. And I'm being totally serious. That ended a string of bad days that lasted for the better part of 3 years, but it wasn't over yet. When I got done with said tournament and they crowned the 3A and 4A state champions, which I had the pleasure, the absolute thrill of a lifetime in calling those games, I found myself homeless again. No money, nowhere to go. And I went to a shelter in Michigan City, Indiana. And there come the bad days again. I'll have to forgive me if I burst into tears because I'm letting this one out and I'm letting it roll. Rolling on till July of 2018, I had honestly come to a crossroads. And when I came to said crossroads, I had to answer a very important question. What is next? What's next? Because I sure as hell didn't know. I sure as fuck didn't understand why I was going through all this, why all this was happening. I truly didn't. I truly didn't. And I didn't talk to anybody. Let me correct myself. I barely talked to anybody. I didn't know what the hell to do. I had shut down Snowman in the morning. I had shut down doing my play-by-play, and I said, this is it. I said, this is it. I sat in Starbucks in Michigan City and cried every day for about a month. And I had made the decision at that time, right before my birthday, that I literally told myself I'm going to end it. I don't care anymore. No one cared. No one loved me. No one gave a damn. So why should I? Let me say that again. No one, I literally said, no one cared. No one gave a damn. So why should I? Well, just when I was thinking of a way to end it. Just when I was thinking of a way to say goodbye. Someone rode to my rescue. And there are days I can honestly tell y'all I don't know how. And that person is this pretty lady right here. The lady who would go on to become Mrs. Jody Snow, my Dr. K. This is a picture we took at Soldier Field last fall, covering the Chicago Football Classic. And though I said we would not return to Soldier Field, I have the feeling we're going to do it again because I feel we have some unfinished business. But that is the woman who rode to the rescue. Sometimes men don't know if they can be rescued or if they should be rescued. I had fallen off the fence and thought, I don't deserve to be rescued at all, nor do I deserve to rescue anyone. I thought my time was done. I thought I am never going to matter anymore. I thought I am never going to matter anymore. No one cares. And I can honestly tell you, I'm glad I was wrong. So, can a man ever have a bad day? According to society's rules, no, they cannot. But can it buoy them into a string of good days? You goddamn right they can. Don't ever let, and I've learned this lesson on a daily basis, don't ever let the bad days dictate your good times and good days. Because eventually the laws of averages will catch up and you'll have more good days, but you have to be around to accept them and enjoy them. Take it from me. A cancer survivor, a survivor of blood clots, a survivor of, well, almost a survivor of anxiety and depression. I'm still fighting it. And I want to heal naturally from anxiety and depression. And do you know how much depression goes on in the male community? Do you know how many men suffer from depression, but they're not allowed to talk about it? Let me ask that question again. Do you know how many men suffer from depression, but they're not allowed to talk about it? Well, I'll be the first to talk about it loud because it's necessary and it needs to happen and it needs to happen right now. It needs to happen right now. On the next edition of Diary of a Mad Snowman, which I have planned for, uh, actually, I have it planned for tomorrow night. I will plan it for tomorrow night. You're right, Shane. Circles back to being a robot in this society. And you, Shane, and you, Victor, took the brunt of my calls when I was in tears, when I was an emotional wreck, when I was all over the place. I thank you guys for being there as long as you have been. And as I said earlier tonight, there are nights where I didn't sleep at all. And at age 51, there shouldn't be nights where I don't sleep, but because of production work, there are nights I happily don't sleep, but I'm putting this together so I can help people, so I can help men. So I can help men. Because we need it. We need it. If people only understood how bad we need the help. If people only understood how bad we could use the help and not have it cost an arm and 2.5 legs. If people will only understand why why men need the help so they can continue to thrive. And I said it right, thrive, not just survive, but thrive. It is time that we did. It is time that we thrived. It is time that we thrived, gentlemen. Since they want to paint narratives about us, let's turn it around and paint our own narrative that we can and will work together to help each other. Black men, especially. Let's turn it around and make sure we all come together, help each other, and be there for each other. Period. Just like my buddy Michael Ray was last night when he and I talked for about 40 minutes about his game called You're the Coach, having an advertising deal, and going from there. So, can a man ever have a bad day? No. That's the narrative. But you know what'll piss society off? When we flip it and tell them that, yeah, we can have a bad day and turn it into a good day. Many good days, not just one, but many good days. It can happen. And by God, it will happen. I want to thank y'all for listening to this episode 1 reboot of Diary of a Mad Snowman, an audio diary. And I wanted to make it an audio diary because it's something that I started a long time ago when I would just do play-by-play in audio fashion. And just wanted to get back to my roots. I just wanted to get back to my roots. On the next episode of Diary of a Mad Snowman, A Journey into Discovery, I will talk more going behind the curtain in taking control of your own narrative. And I will also talk more about my fight against blood clots, pancreatic cancer, being told there's no shot, and still being here today. If you like what you heard, and I hope that you did, do me a favor. Make a contribution to the Snow household via Cash App. The tag you need is $ Tallman Dr. K50. It's me and my wife. It's Tallman Dr. K50 via Cash App or at Snowman2172 via PayPal. And believe me, I just may turn this into a nightly diary. It's just going to depend on the time. So I thought I would be weekly. It just may turn into nightly because there's a lot to talk about. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for listening. God bless you. And I will talk to y'all tomorrow. So long, folks.